Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My phone vibrated so hard it skated off the counter. I snatched it mid-fall and my thumb hit answer. Grandma's voice came out thin and jagged like torn paper. She gasped my brother's name and I felt my chest lock up. My name is Mason and I was 26 that night. I stood there frozen with the call pressed to my ear. Something's wrong, she rasped, then she made this wet choke sound. I hate myself for this, but my first thought was Eli. I sprinted to Eli's room and banged the door with my fist. He popped up in bed like he already expected bad news. I shoved the phone at him and he grabbed it with both hands. His face changed fast, and that scared me more than her breathing. He mouthed Grandma and swung his legs over the edge. I saw his suit jacket hanging on the chair and my stomach dipped. He had that interview in the morning, the one he obsessed over. Now he was staring at the phone like it held a timer. "Call 911, I whispered, then I hated how weak it sounded. Eli shook his head and jabbed at the screen with shaking fingers. "Where are you?" he snapped into the speaker without blinking. Grandma coughed once, then she let the line go quiet. That silence did something ugly to my brain. I started pacing and my heel kept catching on the rug edge. Eli paced too, like we were trapped in a small ring. Then Grandma spoke again, and she sounded closer than before. "I'm at home," she wheezed, and I heard a hard swallow. Eli ran past me and yanked open the front door. Cold air hit my face and my thoughts scattered everywhere. I chased him outside because staying felt like choosing wrong. Eli's car started on the first crank and that felt like luck. I dove into the passenger seat and slammed the door too hard. He threw the phone on speaker and drove like the road offended him. The streetlights streaked past and I kept waiting for a siren behind us. I told him to slow down and my hands hovered near the dash. He shook his head once and his jaw looked clenched to stone. "I am not losing her tonight," he muttered through his teeth. I believed him, but I also heard something else under it. Grandma made these little noises between breaths like she was counting. Eli asked questions fast and she answered slow on purpose. I watched his knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. Every time she paused, my gut whispered that this was not clean. I tried calling 911 anyway, and my finger slipped on the screen. Eli slapped my hand away without looking at me. "Do not start that," he snapped, then his eyes flicked to me. That look had history in it, and it landed like a punch. My phone buzzed again, and it was a text from her number. It was just one word: hurry. I showed Eli, and he hit the gas even harder. The tires hummed louder, and I wondered who sent it. We turned onto her street, and Eli's breath went sharp. He leaned forward like he could pull the house closer. I scanned for lights in windows and for anyone outside. Everything looked too normal, and my skin started to prickle. Eli killed the engine before the car fully stopped. He shoved the door open and nearly tripped on the curb. I jumped out after him and my legs felt wrong and heavy. He ran to her porch like it was a finish line, and I ran too. Eli slammed his fist on the door until his knuckles flashed. I hovered behind him and watched his shoulders rise and fall. No groan came from inside. The porch stayed dead quiet, and that felt wrong. He tried the handle and it was locked tight. He leaned into the window and cupped his hands. "Grandma," his voice cracked and he hated that sound. I saw his throat work like he swallowed a whole stone. I stepped off the porch and looked down the street. No neighbors rushed out. No lights snapped on in panic. It was like we were the only ones hearing a crisis. Eli pulled his own phone out and stabbed redial. He held it to his ear and stared at the door. The call rang and rang, then cut to voicemail. His face tightened like a cord about to snap. I reached for the emergency number again and stopped myself. Yeah, I know how that reads now. In the moment I pictured her furious, not her hurt. That hesitation still crawls under my skin. Eli started pounding again, harder this time. The doorframe rattled and I flinched at the noise. "Open up," he threw the words like a brick. Then I heard it, soft laughter from a TV inside. I froze and looked at Eli. He heard it too, and his eyes darted toward me. He hit the doorbell and kept his finger pressed down. The chime rang steady, and nothing matched her choking voice. A shadow crossed the peephole and Eli leaned forward fast. The door opened a crack and chain links clinked. Grandma's face appeared, perfectly awake, perfectly focused. She blinked at Eli like she forgot his name on purpose. Eli pushed the chain aside with shaking fingers. He didn't ask permission. He stepped in and scanned her from head to toe. I followed, and my stomach dropped at what I did not see. She clutched her chest and made a tiny wheeze. It looked practiced, and I hated myself for thinking that. Eli knelt like a reflex and searched her eyes. Grandma watched him kneel, and something like satisfaction flickered. Where does it hurt? Eli's hand hovered near her shoulder. She angled away barely, like she wanted him chasing. Just sit, she patted the couch beside her. He sat anyway, and his watch face glowed against his wrist. I moved toward the kitchen and grabbed a glass. My hands trembled and the water sloshed onto my thumb. I brought it back and she waved it off without looking. That tiny dismissal hit me harder than any scream. Eli pulled his phone out and started to dial again. Grandma's palm shot up fast, almost sharp. No hospitals, her tone landed like a rule, not fear. Eli paused mid-tap, and I saw anger fighting panic. I tried to meet Eli's eyes and he dodged mine. He looked trapped inside his own duty. Grandma leaned back and let out a long breath, almost theatrical. Then she glanced at the hallway like she expected an audience. Eli stood and took one step toward the door. Do you want help or not? His voice went flat. Grandma's fingers tightened on her shirt, then relaxed too cleanly. And that's when I knew this night was going to get ugly. Eli grabbed her wrist and counted under his breath. Grandma stared at the ceiling like she was bored. I watched his thumb press, then lift, then press again. Her pulse felt real to him, but her eyes felt staged. Where are your meds? Eli scanned the side table and the floor. Grandma flicked her fingers like he annoyed her. Not that, she pointed toward the kitchen without looking at it. He stood up fast and she tracked him like a referee. I followed him and tried not to make it worse. He yanked open a cabinet and paused, like he forgot what he needed. You know that feeling when your brain skips a gear? That was him, and it made me nervous. Grandma called out, bring me soup. Not help me, not please. Just a command, clean and sharp. Eli froze with his hands still raised. He glanced at me like I should translate her mood. I lifted my shoulders and hated how useless that looked. He set a bowl down in front of her and waited. She didn't touch it and the silence got heavy. Eli pulled his phone out again and started another call. Grandma slapped his hand away, quick and sure. His screen flashed, then went dark. My jaw dropped and I felt heat rush up my neck. Stop doing that, she snapped, then softened too fast. She pressed 2 fingers to her chest and let out a long sigh. Eli leaned in, ready to catch her. She never tipped, not even a little. I tried to step between them, and my voice came out wrong. Let me drive you somewhere, I heard myself begging. Grandma turned her head toward me like I was a stranger. Sit, her finger hooked toward the couch like a leash. Eli sat again, but he sat on the edge. His knee bounced hard enough to shake the cushion. Grandma's gaze dipped to his wrist. That watch mattered to her, and I noticed it. She reached out and pinched his sleeve. Not gentle, not brutal, just controlling. You're in a hurry, she smirked like she caught him stealing. Eli flinched and stared at his hands. I'm here, his words came out clipped and forced. Grandma nodded like a judge granting mercy. Then she asked, where are you going so dressed up? The question hit the room like a shove. Eli blinked and didn't answer right away. He looked at me again and I looked away first. Yeah, I know that was coward behavior. Grandma's smile widened and it looked hungry. Eli tried to steer it back. Tell me what hurts, his palm hovered near her shoulder again. Grandma leaned away and made another breathy noise. Then she whispered pharmacy, like it was a diagnosis. Eli stood up so fast his chair scraped. Okay, he moved toward the door, already committed. Grandma lifted her hand and pointed at me. You're coming too, she ordered, and my stomach tightened. I wanted to refuse, but I did not. I told myself it was safer if I stayed close. That was my excuse in real time. Now it reads like I helped her trap him. Eli checked his phone and his face drained. He swiped again like the minutes might change. Grandma watched that motion and made a small satisfied sound. It was the first time I felt anger beat fear. Call someone else to take you, Eli kept his tone controlled. Grandma waved him off like he was annoying her again. No, she tapped the couch twice, slow and deliberate. Eli's shoulders sagged and I saw him lose ground. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. Are you really okay? My question came out shaky. Grandma looked right at me and didn't blink. Then she coughed once and the timing was perfect. Grandma shoved her purse at my brother and into it at the door. He caught it like it weighed a ton. I trailed them both, feeling like an accomplice already. She moved too steady for someone fading, and I noticed. My brother kept glancing at his phone like it might forgive him. Grandma clicked her tongue and nudged his elbow. Keys, she held out her hand like she owned his schedule. He hesitated and she smiled like she won something. We got her into the car and she buckled herself fast. No trembling, no fumbling, nothing. I slid into the back seat and stared at the headrest. My brain kept replaying her gasp from the call. My brother pulled out of the driveway with a sharp turn. Grandma tapped the dashboard twice, directing him like a driver. Not that way, she pointed without looking up. He followed and his jaw tightened again. I leaned forward and tried to keep my voice calm. Do you want urgent care after the pharmacy? Grandma made a small laugh that was not friendly. Stop fussing, her eyes stayed on my brother's face. My brother merged into traffic and breathed through his nose. He kept one hand on the wheel and one on his phone. I saw the calendar alert flash, then disappear under his thumb. Grandma watched him swipe and her mouth twitched. We hit a red light and he checked the time again. Grandma reached over and tilted his chin toward her. Look at me, her nails pressed a little too hard. He went still and the silence turned thick. You're dressed up, she said like that was the emergency. My brother exhaled and stared straight ahead. It's important, his voice sounded careful and strained. Grandma hummed like she did not care at all. I shifted in the back seat and rubbed my palms together. Sincere question, have you ever felt trapped by someone's tone? That was me, stuck between his panic and her control. Then Grandma leaned forward and pointed at the next turn. My brother missed the turn on purpose, I swear he did. Grandma snapped her fingers near his ear. Turn around, her words landed like a slap. He turned around and his shoulders sank a fraction. We pulled into the pharmacy lot and she opened her door first. She swung her legs out like nothing hurt. My brother stepped out and stared at her, confused and angry. Grandma met his stare and didn't even blink. He offered his arm and she took it for show. The second we started walking, her grip loosened. She didn't lean on him, she just held him. Like she needed him attached, not supportive. Inside, she walked straight to the counter with quick steps. My brother hovered beside her with that forced, polite face. I stayed a half step back and watched her posture. It was too firm for someone struggling to breathe earlier. Grandma dug through her purse and slapped down a card. She slid it toward the clerk with a tight little smile. My brother mouthed please at the clerk like an apology. Grandma's eyes flicked to his mouth and her smile sharpened. The clerk asked for her birthday and Grandma answered fast. No fog, no confusion, not even a pause. My brother's eyes darted to me, asking the same question. Why did she sound so clear now? Grandma leaned on the counter and started listing demands. Not requests, demands. My brother shifted his weight and checked his phone again. Grandma's hand shot out and covered his screen. Put it away, her voice went low and serious. My brother froze, then slowly pocketed it. I wanted to step in, but my feet stayed stuck. That moment still makes me cringe. The clerk returned and named a price. Grandma scoffed and pulled out a coupon like a weapon. She thrust it forward with a tiny triumphant nod. My brother stared at the coupon like it insulted him. The clerk shook their head and pointed at fine print. Grandma's face tightened and she lifted her chin. My brother started to speak, then stopped himself. He swallowed his pride and I saw it happen. Grandma's eyes moved over his suit like she was inspecting him. You look fancy for someone with time for family, she said. My brother's hand curled into a fist by his thigh. He kept it down, but it trembled. I leaned closer to Grandma and lowered my voice. Are you actually sick? My throat felt dry saying it. She turned her head and stared right into my face. Then she smiled like I was finally fun. Don't start, she patted my cheek, almost affectionate. I flinched anyway because it felt like a warning. My brother noticed and his eyes narrowed. Grandma noticed that too, and her mouth curved higher. The clerk scanned something and asked for a signature. Grandma signed with a steady hand and slid it back. My brother exhaled hard, relief and rage mixed together. Then Grandma added, "We need one more thing," and pointed deeper inside. My brother started walking, then stopped short. "Grandma, I have to go," he blurted. His voice came out rough like it scraped his throat. Grandma didn't answer hi. She just kept walking. I followed them into an aisle and my heart hammered. My brother reached for his phone again, then hesitated. Grandma turned fast and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was strong and his face flashed with shock. "Let go," he muttered, eyes hard. Grandma loosened her fingers but stayed close. "You're always rushing now," she whispered, almost pleased. My brother looked like he might snap right there. I stepped between them and forced a laugh that sounded fake. Okay, my voice didn't convince anyone. Grandma leaned around me and stared at my brother's face. "What's so urgent that you can't spare 10 minutes?" she pressed. My brother's eyes flicked toward the front doors. He looked like he was counting exits. "It's my future," he said, and his voice cracked once. Grandma's expression changed, and it scared me. She softened her eyes and nodded like she understood. Then she turned to me and gave a small sigh. "That girl has him acting like this," she murmured. My stomach dropped because now I recognized the target. My brother stiffened like he got slapped without contact. "Don't," one word full of warning. Grandma ignored it and kept talking at a low volume. Like she was sharing gossip, not lighting a fuse. "She keeps him busy," Grandma whispered, eyes on his suit. My brother's hands lifted, then fell again. He looked torn between walking out and staying respectful. Grandma watched him struggle like it entertained her. I tried to cut in, but Grandma touched my arm first. Her fingers squeezed in a way that felt calculated. "Help me," she breathed, and her eyes looked glassy on purpose. Then she straightened up again, perfectly fine. My brother stared at her like he finally saw two faces. He glanced at the clerk, then at the front doors. He looked back at me and his eyes asked for backup. I wanted to give it, but my mouth stayed shut. The clerk called Grandma's name and held out a bag. Grandma took it and smiled sweetly like nothing happened. My brother took one step toward the exit, then stopped again. Grandma shifted closer, blocking him without touching him. "You'll drive me home," she said, casual and final. My brother's lips parted and no words came out. He checked the time once more and went pale. I saw his hands shake and I hated her for it. He tried again, quieter this time. "Please, I can order you a ride." Grandma laughed under her breath, sharp and quick. "Family drives," she replied, and her eyes never left his. We headed back to the car and I lagged behind. My head buzzed with the obvious truth I avoided. This was not about pain or breathing or fear. This was about control, and it was working. In the parking lot, I moved closer to Grandma's side. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, voice shaking. She didn't look at me at first. Then she leaned in close and her smile vanished. "You want the truth," her whisper hit my ear like ice. I nodded even though my gut screamed no. She tilted her head toward my brother and watched him pace. Then she said the next line like it was nothing. "He needs a lesson," she breathed, calm and certain. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. My brother spun around and caught the end of it. His eyes locked on her and the air went razor thin. Eli whipped the car around and cut into her driveway hard. Grandma got out first and moved like nothing was wrong. I jumped out and my legs felt wired and stupid. Eli walked behind her like a storm following a smile. She unlocked the door and slipped inside without help. Eli pushed in after her and shut it too hard. I hesitated on the threshold, then forced myself in. My throat tightened because I knew what he was about to do. Eli stepped in front of her and blocked the hallway. "Tell me the truth," his voice shook then steadied. Grandma blinked slow like she was considering a joke. I watched her decide whether to play sick again. She pressed a hand to her chest and let out a small groan. Eli did not move this time. He folded his arms and looked at the floor, then back up. "Do it again," he said, and it sounded like a dare. Grandma's eyes flashed and her mouth pulled tight. "Don't talk to me like that," she lifted a finger at him. Eli nodded once like he expected that pivot. "Answer the question," he pushed, and the air went sharp. I tried to step closer and my feet stuck. "Sincerely, have you ever wanted to disappear mid-argument?" That was me half praying for a real emergency. Because then we could stop fighting and just fix something. Grandma swept past him and headed for the living room. Eli followed and planted himself between her and the couch. She made a little offended sound and clutched her purse. Then she tilted her head like she was the wounded party. "You embarrassed me," her voice went sugary and low. Eli's eyebrows lifted, almost laughing but no humor. "Aim. You embarrassed yourself." His hands stayed open at his sides. Grandma's stare hardened, and I felt the next move coming. She pointed at his suit like it was evidence. "Family calls and you were thinking about work." Eli let out a short breath through his nose. "I was thinking about you not dying," he snapped back. Grandma's expression softened like a switch flipped. "Oh honey," she reached for his sleeve. He stepped back fast and her hand grabbed empty air. That rejection landed, and she looked furious for one beat. Then she tried a new angle. "You used to come over without being asked." Eli's lips pressed together and his eyes cut toward me. I could feel him asking if I would finally speak. I did speak and it came out messy. "You were fine at the pharmacy." My voice cracked on fine. Grandma's gaze swung to me and it pinned me in place. She smiled like I just volunteered for punishment. "Of course I was fine," she waved a hand at the room. I pulled myself together because I had to. Eli's shoulders lifted with a harsh laugh, then dropped. "Stop lying," he said, and the word hit like a slap. Grandma's face twisted like he spit on her. "I am not lying." She lifted her chin, proud and stiff. Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He turned the screen toward her and his finger hovered. "You texted hurry while ignoring my calls." Eli tapped the screen once and held it steady. Grandma glanced at it, then looked away too fast. That dodge was louder than a confession. I watched Eli's hands start to tremble again. He tried to hide it by clenching his jaw. Grandma noticed anyway, and her mouth curved with satisfaction. That tiny curve made my stomach turn. Eli took a step closer, slow and controlled. "Were you actually in danger?" He kept his tone flat. Grandma's eyes flicked toward the door like she measured exits. Then she looked back at him and chose violence with words. "You would not come unless I forced you." Eli blinked like she slapped him without touching him. He swallowed hard and his throat bobbed. "Say it straight," he demanded, and his voice thinned. Grandma folded her arms and leaned back. "I needed you here," she shrugged like it was obvious. Eli stared at her hands, then at her face. "You needed my time," he said, and I saw it click. She answered with a small nod, almost smug. "I needed you to stop running around like you're grown." Eli's eyes widened and his mouth opened, then shut. He looked like he might explode, and I braced for it. Instead, he went quiet. He pulled his phone out again and checked the time. His face drained and his shoulders dropped at once. I realized the interview window was already gone. Eli's voice came out low and dangerous. "You did this so I would miss it." Grandma did not even deny it. She tipped her head and gave a slow, satisfied blink. "You were leaving," her tone turned scolding. "You were walking out on family for strangers." Eli stared at her like she grew teeth. "I was walking toward my life," he shot back. Grandma pointed at him like he was a child. "Your life is here," she jabbed the air between them. Eli shook his head once like he was done bargaining. "No," he said, and it sounded final. I stepped in because silence felt like betrayal now. "You scared us on purpose." My words came out too loud. Grandma's gaze cut toward me and it was pure warning. Then she smiled again, and it was worse than yelling. "I taught him a lesson," she said it like a victory. Eli flinched and his eyes flashed wet for a second. He looked down fast, like tears were an enemy. That moment made me furious in a clean, bright way. Eli turned and walked toward the door without rushing. Grandma moved to intercept, quick and practiced. I stepped sideways and blocked her path without thinking. My heart slammed because I did not know if she would hit me. She did not hit me. She leaned close and hissed, "Move." I stayed put and my knees shook under me. Eli's hand closed on the doorknob and the click sounded huge. Grandma's voice turned theatrical again. "So you're abandoning me?" She pressed a hand to her chest. Eli did not look back. He opened the door and cold air rushed in like relief. He paused on the porch and finally faced her. "If you call me like that again, I will call an ambulance." Grandma's smile slipped for half a second. Eli added, "And I won't come," then he walked away. I followed him outside and my lungs felt tight. He reached the car and stood there with his hand on the roof. His shoulders shook once, then he forced them still. I wanted to say something perfect and nothing came. He slid into the driver's seat and stared ahead. I got in beside him and kept my hands in my lap. The silence between us felt like a wound you do not touch. Then his phone buzzed and we both flinched. He looked down and his face tightened hard. "Avoy." Email notification from the interviewer lit the screen. He did not play it. He just locked the phone and stared straight ahead. Behind us, the front door cracked open again. Grandma stood there watching, her posture calm and sure. She lifted her phone to her ear like she might dial someone. Eli started the car, and I wondered who she would call next.